You know, that particular kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. Not the tired that comes from doing too much. The tired that comes from being someone you never consciously chose to be. You wake up already performing, already managing, already deciding who needs what from you before you've even taken your first breath of the day. That's not exhaustion. That's what it costs to live from an agreement that was never yours to manage. Last week, we named the agreement. Today, we break it. If you're new, this is episode 5 of the Wholeness series. Episode 4 is linked in the description. Go watch it. It's the foundation. Everything today builds from what we've uncovered there. And if you found this channel through my Sister Locks journey or my wellness journey, welcome. This is where all three connect. The locks, the weight release, the wholeness. It's one life. Subscribe so you don't miss one thread. So glad you're back for this week's talk. It's about to get deep. Let's get into it. For those of you who were here last week, you named something. Maybe you've been sitting with it all week. Maybe something happened this week that handed you the proof. That's not a setback. That's the work beginning. Today is part 2. Today we talk about what comes after the naming. Because naming a broken agreement is only half of the work. The other half, the part that no one talks about, is deciding what you're willing to agree to instead. I want to name something that I think is underneath a lot of the exhaustion that women are carrying right now. We talk about burnout. We talk about doing too much. We build whole practices around rest, boundary setting, and saying no. And those things matter. But I've watched women rest. Really rest. Take the vacation. Step all the way back. And come back just as empty as when they left. That's because the problem was never the doing. The problem was the believing. The invisible agreement running underneath of all of it is still active, still telling you your value lives in your usefulness. That love is something you earn by never needing anything. That rest is a reward that you have to justify. You can stop doing everything and still be exhausted if you don't address the agreement underneath. You cannot rest your way out of a belief system. You have to replace it. I want to get personal because this is never theory for me. You've been watching my wellness journey. You know I am no longer on GLP-1. I've transitioned to tesofisine. And what I've been paying close attention to, more than the numbers, more than the in-body scan results, is what releasing weight keeps revealing underneath it. Because every time I've held on to weight, I've been holding on to something else with it. And every time I've released something in my body, I've had to reckon with why I was using it to protect myself from. There was an invisible agreement underneath. Stay small enough, manageable enough, invisible enough, and you'll be safe. My body was honoring an agreement that my mind had never consciously examined. My Sister Locks has been the same lesson from a different direction. When I pulled it all back, chose to show up in my natural, every phase of it, the new growth, the in-between, all of it. That was me practicing a new agreement, that the way I was made is enough, that what grows from the root, if you tend it with love, is worth seeing. The Wholeness series, the Sister Lock journey, the wellness journey, they are not 3 separate series. They are one life being reclaimed. All of it, me rewriting what I agreed to believe about myself. I want to give you the specific rewrites because wholeness lives in the specific, not the general. Read these slowly, and when one lands, when your chest gets tight, when your eyes feel when you exhale, that's the one that's for you. So the old, I must always be strong. And the new agreement, I am allowed to need, to rest, and to receive. Strength that never rests is not strength. It is performance. And I am done performing my survival. Another one, the old, my value comes from what I do. The new agreement, I was made in the image of God and my worth was settled before I ever took my first breath. That is not affirmation. I'm manufacturing. That is his declaration and I receive it. Another one, the old agreement. If I disappoint people, I'll lose them. The new agreement, relationships that only survive my performance were never safe to begin with. I am not responsible for managing another person's response to my wholeness. The old agreement, everyone else's needs come first. The new agreement, loving my neighbor as myself, requires that I first know what it means to love myself. That is not selfish. That is the full instruction. The old agreement, showing up means carrying it. The new agreement, showing up for someone is not the same as being accountable for their outcome. I can be present without carrying what was never mine to hold. Drop a purple circle in the comments and tell me, which old agreement are you still living from? Which one hit the hardest when you read it? I am reading every single one of them. I need to say this because someone is going to leave today feeling like they've already failed at the new agreement. The old patterns have years, sometimes decades behind it. It has neural pathways. It has survival instincts built around it. At some point, it kept you safe, or so it told you it did. The new agreement is new. It doesn't have that history yet. And so for a while, it's going to feel thin compared to the old one. It's going to feel like a choice you have to keep making. That's not weakness. That's how transformation actually works. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and feel like the new agreement is in your bones. What you're going to do is notice when you're feeling like you're moving from the old one, and you're going to pause. And then you're going to choose again. Every time you choose again, you're building a new pattern. A new pattern becomes a new default. A new default becomes a new life. That is the whole work. That is all it is. We've been having a cultural conversation for years now about the strong woman, the one who holds everything together, who doesn't need anything, who shows up even when she's falling apart. We're good at naming it. We call it out. We even make the content. We send it to each other in a group chat at midnight. But here's what I don't see named enough. We identify the pattern, but we never grieved what it cost us. Behind every strong woman who was never allowed to be soft, there's a version of herself she had to bury. A version that wanted to be held instead of always holding. A version that wanted to be chosen instead of having to earn it. A version that needed someone to say, you don't have to carry this. And she never got to mourn that. So she kept performing strength, and she called it who she was. This is what invisible agreements do at their deepest levels. They don't just take your energy. They take the version of you that was allowed to be fully human. Wholeness is not finding yourself. It is grieving the version of you that never got to exist and making room for the one that has been waiting. Ephesians 4, verse 22 through 24. Put off your old self, which belonged to your former manner of life, and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God, in true righteousness and holiness. 3 movements, not one. Put off, be renewed, put on, not decide to do better, not try harder, not will yourself into a new version of who you are, but Put off, be renewed, put on. The renewal is the middle part. It is the part that takes time. It is the part that requires community. People who can see where you're living from the old agreement and speak the new one back to you until you can hold it for yourself. That is why this community exists. That is why we show up here every Sunday. You are not renewing your mind by trying harder. You are renewing your mind by receiving truth and surrounding yourself with people who are in the same work. 3 weeks into this series. And I want to ask you something before you go. Who were you before you made the first invisible agreement? Before you learned that love had to be earned? Before you learned that being needed was safer than being wanted? Before you made yourself small enough to survive whatever room you were in? Who was she? I'm asking because she's still there. She's not gone anywhere. She has been waiting for you to stop honoring agreements that you never consciously chose. Every agreement that you release that God never gave you makes room for another piece of you to come home. That is what wholeness is. Not a finished state, a homecoming, an ongoing, imperfect, and it's real. Leave me a comment before you go. Tell me, who were you before you made your first agreement? Or tell me which new agreement you're starting with this week. I want to know. I'm in these comments. I want to get to know you like you are getting to know me. And we continue to build this community. Share this with a woman who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you're here every Sunday. Next week, we go deeper into what it means to build your life from identity instead of survival. You don't want to miss it, but always remember.
We pray, we forgive, we rise.